Thank you, and really excited to be here. Today, we'll be going through turning live moments into lasting loyalty with Braze and AWS. Really going to break it down into three parts today. First, what problems are we seeing and how are we solving them? Who is Braze and how does Braze and AWS work together? And then a little demo to close us out that actually shows us working in tandem. So what are we seeing? So we're seeing three big buckets in terms of problems. We're seeing retentions become fragile. People are coming to our customers in the sports, media, entertainment, and gaming spaces, but it's hard to keep them engaged. I might go and join a streaming service for a specific game, for a specific event. What can we do to make sure that I stay, that I continue to engage? And that is really trying to understand, what do I care about? Let's take, let's take someone that we're going to be using a couple of times today, Lucas. Lucas joined Torchy Streaming because he wanted to watch the handball championships. But what are we going to do when the handball championships end? How are we going to understand what else he wants to watch, what else he cares about? That's why what we're seeing is the understanding of who our audiences are is fragmented. I know one thing about him. How can I really get to have this full view of who Lucas is? And then when he really does care, when there's a big event where we discovered he cares about more than handball, he cares about basketball. How are we reaching him at the right moment and continuing to engage him with content that he cares about? So these are the issues that we're seeing and with the customers we work with. And we can talk a little bit about who Braze is, and then we'll jump into how we work alongside AWS and how we solve those problems. At the end of the day, Braze is a customer engagement platform. Our goal is to help our customers, whatever space they might be in within sports, streaming, gaming, or entertainment, to know who their customers are and to give them messaging that is relevant, timely, and for them, so that you don't feel like you're getting the same message no matter what you watch, who you want to watch, and what you care about. We've got 155 technology partners, AWS being one that we work very closely with. We'll talk about our integrations, why there's so much of a better together story among us. But we also have customers sending 300 customers sending 1 billion messages per year. So we can support the scale. Does not matter if you are a massive streaming service, the world's biggest soccer club. We can support the scale and the messaging that you need without you worrying about that messaging not going out when it needs to go out. Here are some of the partners that we work with. We've got everyone from HBO Max to customers in the streaming media. We've got sports teams. We are built for really everyone and anyone. But what we're going to be talking today is how we can help within the streaming space, what we call our MEGS vertical, which is all around media, entertainment, sports, and gaming. How do we work together? So we just talked a little bit about who Braze is. Let's talk about this better together story with AWS. Braze Cloud Data Ingestion. That's Braze vernacular. I'll break it down in terms of what it really means. We're able to ingest data from via S3 from a Redshift to make sure that we understand who Lucas is. You might have information about your customers that isn't in Braze yet, but you want to use it for personalization, for messaging, audience creation. We can take that data in. You just tell us what data to ingest, and we can ingest it at the frequency that you need that data, whether it is every 15 minutes or once a day. We're flexible. We just need to know what data you need to send us. For that more sensitive data, we have what we call cloud data ingestion segments. So let's say that you have PII. You have something that is sensitive that you do not want to have copied into Braze for whatever reason. We're going to be able to use that to create audiences, to actually target people without it bringing it into Braze. So PII, whatever the sensitivity might be around it, we can use that data without you having to send it to us. So again, data is what is king. We want to make sure that wherever that data is, however sensitive it is, you can use it alongside Braze. That's all about data in. What about data out? Within the demo that we have for you all today, we're actually going to talk about how you can get information from Lucas with Braze. But what if you want to use that outside of Braze for whatever you might need it for? We have what we call currents, which will allow you to export data out right when you get it. So if Lucas opens an email, interacts with a push, gives you information about what else he cares about, we can bring it in and we can take it out and give it back to you for BI, other platforms, whatever else you might need there. And then we can work alongside Amazon Bedrock and Amazon Personalize to really give those curated recommendations to say, Lucas, you told us that this is what you want. You care about basketball. We know you care about handball. Now let's give you a basketball game to watch or a recommendation. That is just a few of the ways that we can work along AWS. We have customers leveraging all four of these today to make sure that they are really delivering the best experience with AWS working alongside Braze. Let's talk about how we can turn those signals that you might be getting from Lucas, but you don't really know how to act on them. How do I get him to come back and watch another event, watch another game? How do you take Lucas, who came to us because of handball, and expose him to basketball, to table tennis, whatever else Torchy's streaming has to offer? The way we can do this is through the unification roadmap. So right now, we have that fragmented audience data. How are we going to work alongside AWS and Braze to turn it into a full view of who Lucas is, what he cares about, through cloud data ingestion, through CDI segments? That is how you take a piece of what you know about Lucas and turn it into a full profile. How are we going to give him the content that he cares about, make it easy for him to find it, because we can just serve it to him without him having to go look for it because we know who Lucas is. How are we going to do that in real time? He tells us he cares about basketball. How are we going to get him a game that he can watch when it's going on? And if we do all of that right, Lucas will be streaming all types of games, continuously renewing his subscription, and we will be able to grow the lifetime value that we see from Lucas. So the first piece, unifying the data. I mentioned cloud data ingestion. Whatever Torchy streaming knows about Lucas, that is in other systems that they need to get to Braze, through cloud data ingestion, they can give us the information. So Lucas goes from we just know he does handball to this is the full view of him. And we do all this in real time. If something happens and we want to act on it right away, we have the ability to, through multiple avenues, to get the data, to update the profile, and get the message out. So stage one, unifying the data to create a full view of who Lucas is. Orchestrated content discovery. How are we going to help Lucas find the content that he cares most about? And we're going to be able to do this through using Amazon Personalize with our AWS partners, combine it with channels like Braze content cards. Braze content cards is persistent messaging. It is something that can be part of an app. It can be part of a website. It is there. It feels like the app experience, the streaming experience. We have customers that really build their entire app or a large chunk of their app with content cards because it's completely personalized. We have a customer in the fitness industry where what they do is if they know that I go to a certain class, using content cards, they can serve me the next class that I might want to go to. Whereas if Lucas goes to a different class, he's going to see something completely different. But at the end of the day, it is dynamic and it is personalized using the data that we have and then the Braze channel. Content cards is just one of them. We'll talk a little bit more about the different ways you can activate on this messaging. And then we've talked about the data ingestion for someone like Lucas. But what we can also do with cloud data ingestion is power what we call catalogs, which can be all of your games. It can be all of your content, your articles using cloud data ingestion. So that data flow is not only for understanding who your viewers are, who your fans are, but it also gives you the ability to update what you want to present to them. Real-time personalization. Everyone says it. We do it. The way that we are built, we can ingest data, get the message out in 1.1 seconds. So you give us that data, we can put Lucas into the audience that he needs to be a part of. We can personalize it with what he cares about and get it out the door. It's why customers depend on us when it comes to things like election nights, major sporting events. We can realize what they're doing and get the message out the door with a level of personalization. I mentioned a little bit earlier CDI segments, which are the ability for you to use data that might be a little bit sensitive, that you don't want to copy. You just want to be able to use it for audience creation. In the same avenue, we have something called connected content, which allows you to tap into data that lives outside of Braze that you don't want to bring into Braze. So think about Torchy streaming. They don't want to bring all of their games into Braze because they already have it in a database. They have it living elsewhere. What they can do is use connected content, which is an API call, and bring in a relevant game. So if I care about basketball, I'll get a basketball game. If I care about handball, it'll be handball. But it's an API call. It is something that is done at the onset, and it is just easy to maintain. And that's what's going to help carry out that personalized content. And we've talked about a couple of ways that you can deliver it. What I want to come back to is regardless of where the data is, the sensitivity of it, we can activate on it to deliver this real-time personalization. And we talked about the customers that we have sending over 1 billion messages a year. We can support that. But we also work with customers who are starting out. We are something that you could graduate into or you need to move into. Either way, we have customers that go from both ends of the spectrum there. The Torchy streaming example. How are we going to keep Lucas? I feel like every day there's a new streaming service that is advertising to me. And there's that one TV show that I want to watch on it. And then what am I really going to do after that one TV show? Am I going to renew? Am I going to take advantage of the 14-day trial and binge watch Ted Lasso? Or am I going to come back and say, what else do you have to offer me? With Amazon Personalize, we can actually understand that somebody might be at risk. And how are we going to cater to them differently than somebody who is watching games every day, streaming shows every day? But we can make it easy to have that view of Lucas who might be tapering off, might be watching a little bit less of Torchy streaming. So how are we going to deliver that win back or that next best show so that we don't have to worry about him churning? Instead, we can turn him into a big fan because he feels as if we know him and we are actually talking to him, not 100 different Lucases who are just getting batch and blast messaging across the board there. And these are just a couple of the ways that we've recognized what are the problems. So I want to go back to kind of how I started it off is what problems are we seeing in this space? Who is Braze? Why are we uniquely positioned to solve those issues? And then how do we work with AWS to say, if you have your data and you know, because you're using Amazon Personalize that, you've got customers that are at risk of churning. How can you give that information to Braze so that we do what we do best, send messaging that makes someone feel like you actually know and understand what they care about? So talk about a specific customer. Let's bring this to life with a customer that Braze and AWS both recognize. They recognize, how can I work alongside both of you? And we can see here the challenges that they faced. High event-based churn. This is actually the client that gave me the inspiration for Lucas, where they recognized that major events, they were acquiring customers, but how are they keeping them? Seasonal retention. There is a specific season for a sport that I really care about, but am I going to unsubscribe once that ends? And then how are they going to use the data that they know, or that they have about me, because they know that I joined for handball. Once handball season ends, I'm gone. How can they get ahead of that? Those were the challenges that they were facing. How did we solve those challenges? One, we created a integrated data ecosystem. So we knew that because Braze and AWS can work alongside each other, because we can get data, we can get the signals from AWS, we were able to make it easy so that they could get ahead of that. They could recognize, how am I going to target Lucas specifically with this precision targeting? How am I going to know through custom attributes, which, think about those as traits, the traits of Lucas, what he watches, who his favorite players are, who his favorite teams are, and how am I going to create a segment that is just for someone like Lucas? We've all gotten the batch and blast emails where it feels like you're talking to 500 people, 500 million people, but you're not talking to me. How can we work? This is what they said their problem was. By combining Braze and AWS, they were able to truly understand and create a relevant segment that made Lucas feel like they knew him. And then we've got the audience. We know what he cares about. How are we going to test that out in a way that is going to allow us to be quick, agile, learn quickly, potentially fail quickly, but pick ourselves up? That was through our A/B testing. We are able to easily create different variants of messages, and then we will right away report on what's working, what voucher, what coupon, what win-back campaign actually worked. Let's expand that. Let's not keep using what's not working. And then we can see, most important, the business outcomes. Significantly improved customer retention and lifetime value. They were able to keep Lucas coming back, watching more and more sports, 10% re-engagement rate on win-back campaigns. They were able to understand what was working, what wasn't working through our A/B testing, and then 80% unique open rate for an extension campaign. So you just had a great 3 months with us. How are we going to make sure that you continue to come back and continue to renew with us? I've talked a lot about how this works, the way that we work alongside each other, the success that our customers have had. We can actually see what Braze looks like and an example of how we can bring this to life. We're about to walk through a 5-minute demo of what this looks like within Braze, how you can build these campaigns, and how Lucas will get messages that are relevant to him. Hi, everyone. As we've talked about, Braze and AWS have a lot of natural connections and integration points. And what we want to do here is help our clients in the media, entertainment, gaming, and sports space re-engage, get to know who their fans, who their viewers are. So for today, I have this journey using Braze Canvas where I want to re-engage a viewer of ours. They came to us through the handball championships, and we haven't been able to really engage. They've fallen off. So how are we going to re-engage Lucas? We can see through our integration with AWS that we have a lot of rich data about him. We have a full view of who he is. But because of this, we've noticed he hasn't watched or streamed with us in a while. This is where we can reactivate a dormant or a potential churn. And what I want to do is, I know that you came to us because of handball. So, Lucas, what else are you interested in? And what I have here is the ability to engage him with a in-app or in-browser message, depending on if he comes to us via the website, via the app. We can ask him a simple question using our drag and drop in-app, in-browser message builder. What do you care about? What else do you want to know? Do you like basketball, volleyball, field hockey, table tennis? On top of the data that we have through our cloud data ingestion with AWS, we can now also stream this data back out via S3 to have a better understanding of who Lucas is that can be used outside of Braze, wherever that might be. And once Lucas tells us what he cares about, we can wait a day. We can decide how long we want to wait. If we decide that this is mission critical, we can send him out something within minutes, hours, seconds. That is how quickly we can work alongside AWS to get the message out the door. And then we will send him a content card, which is a Braze proprietary channel, and a push. And one of the biggest unlocks within Braze is that as you try to reactivate or engage with your fans, your viewers, you can use a whole slew of channels. We've seen push, we have email at our disposal. We can also do OTT if we are looking at this through the lens of the streaming space. And I have a simple recommendation. You told us that you care about basketball. What we can see when I look at this through the lens of Lucas, where I will test this, is that we are going to recommend that Lucas check out the Torchy basketball team. They've got a game upcoming, and we are going to send him this message. But then we're going to combine it with this content card, which think about a content card as something that is consistent, persistent, part of the app experience, part of the mobile experience. So not only are we bringing in out of platform messaging, but the experience will be smooth and consistent for Lucas when he comes onto the app. And now we can wait a day. We have an action path. So we're going to wait. Is Lucas engaging with the content? Did he engage with the content? If he did, we can follow up with a push saying that we're glad he did. If he didn't, we can now use another channel. We can decide what the next best step is. But all of this is powered because of the rich data we had about Lucas through cloud data ingestion with the AWS ecosystem. We learned something about Lucas that we can now send out. And then we used personalization, and we're able to reach him, re-engage him, and bring him back to Torchy streaming. So that's a little bit of Braze in action. With the time you have left, happy to answer any questions about anything that we've talked about. But not a presentation with a little bit of AV fun.